Okay, folks, I think we'll get started. Can I welcome everyone to our Global Solidarity event? And as I said before, the session is going to be recorded. And can I ask you to turn off your video and ensure your audio is on mute while the speaker is talking? I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our speakers, Stephen McCluskey from the Centre for Global Education, Stephen Woods from Tools for Solidarity, and Manuel, their partnership worker. And also joining us today as a speaker is David Joyce from the Irish Congress of Trade Unions. So these are all very welcome. The event will provide an opportunity to hear about the two new projects that the NIPSA charity is supporting with the Centre for Global Education and Tools for Solidarity. And it will also provide an opportunity to hear from David about the work of the Just Transition Alliance. The event will be chaired by Rory O'Sander, who is the Vice Chair of our Global Solidarity Committee. But before I hand over to Rory, I just wanted to say a few words about our charity, especially for those who may not be aware of the NIPSA charity. The charity has been in existence since 1993, 29 years ago, and it was established as a result of a resolution adopted at the 1990 Annual Delegate Conference. Now, this was a unique and historical event in the history of the trade union movement, as no other union in Northern Ireland or UK had such a charitable fund. And since then, we have donated over £750,000 to self-help projects throughout the world. Our support has changed the lives of profoundly poor people who are struggling for basic human rights, the right to water, the right to food, the right to education, and the right to health. And our work would not be possible without the regular donations we receive from our members. We're going to hear shortly about two of the projects we are currently supporting, but these are only some of the many projects we have supported over the years. And just a bit of a plea, we do need your support to continue doing this vital and life-changing work by helping us to raise money for our charity.
She'll be talking to you about...
Could I ask somebody to put someone on mute? I'm just going to mute everyone here. Sorry about that, folks. So what I was saying is we do need your continued support to help us continue with this vital and life-changing work by helping us to raise money for our charity. And it's important to remember that this is your charity, it's NIPSA's charity, unlike others. You will have a say in how and where your money is donated, and 100% of your money goes directly to the projects. And if you're not already a donor, I would ask you to consider maybe donating to our charity through payroll deduction or a one-off donation, or possibly undertaking some fundraising activity on behalf of the charity. And you'll find out more about our fund and ways to support the charity by visiting the NIPSA website at www.nipsa.org.uk. Your support will help us continue to promote solidarity, equality, and social justice throughout the world. So I want to thank all our current donors for the work or for the money that they contribute over the years. And please do consider, if you're not already a donor, joining up through Give Us Yarn. I'd like now to hand over to our to the chair for today's event, Rory. And just to say that there will be an opportunity at the end of the session to ask questions. So please keep your questions to the end, and you can post your questions in the chat facility, or you can ask a question by using the raise hand symbol, and this will be monitored by the chairperson. I will also, just to let you know, I'll be opening up the screen to be shared by multiple users, and this really is to facilitate the speaker. So please be careful not to share any of your own personal information. and we intend to finish the session around 2 p.m. So over to yourself, Rory.
Thanks, Geraldine. Well, you said everything I was going to say, so I'll just continue on the start of it. So everybody's on mute now anyway. The first speaker we have is Stephen McCluskey from the Centre for Global Education, and he's going to chat about the new project we took on this year. It was a one-year project, Project Noor, educating Palestinian and Syrian refugees. And sorry, it's a 2-year project in Lebanon. So what else? So if you want to go ahead there, Stephen.
Thanks, Rory. You gave me a heart attack there for a second.
They're the wrong way about.
Thank you, Rory. Thank you, Geraldine. Thank you, NIPSA, for your support of this project. It's really much appreciated. So this is an education project delivered to 100 Palestinian and Syrian young people in Burj Barajna refugee camp in Beirut, Lebanon. It's one of 12 Palestinian refugee camps in Lebanon, one of 3 in Beirut. And this particular camp where the program is based, Burj Barajna, is the largest Palestinian camp in Beirut, with about 30,000 people living in an area of approximately 1 square kilometre. So it's an education project delivered to 100 youngsters, as I've said, aged 6 to 12. They're not able to attend school for a variety of reasons. And the main aims of the program are to provide formal education activities focused on Arabic, English, and numeracy, to provide structured play activities, including arts and crafts, dance, and role play. All of the youngsters enrolled in the program receive a meal every day, courtesy of our partner organization in Beirut, the Women's Program Association. They're responsible for leading on the training. They facilitate the sessions with the young people. They actually grow the food in a food collective in the camp in Beirut. They also organize field trips outside the camp for the young people as a kind of release valve to escape the pressures of life in the camp. You'll see a few pics shortly of the kind of physical environment that the young people have to endure in the camp, which is quite stark. And the program also provides psychosocial support to young people because of the trauma and stress they experience from living in extreme poverty in the camp. And also, they often live in very highly pressurized family environments as well. So the formal education goal in the program is to provide facilitated education classes in key curriculum skills. I noted specifically Arabic, English, and mathematics as the core aspects of the formal sector work. This enables the young people to learn core curriculum areas central to school delivery in Lebanon, which they're missing out because they don't attend school. So we prioritize formal sector skills as part of the training that we provide to the young people. We also provide opportunities to learn arts and crafts. It's a good way of learning English, Arabic, and maths through arts and crafts. And the young people really, really enjoy getting involved in this kind of thing. We also provide cultural activities to celebrate Palestinian culture and to remember important historical events in Palestine. This particular event marked Land Day on the 30th of March, which calls for the Palestinian right to return to the land from which they were displaced in 1948. So an important date in Palestinian history. So these are the kind of things that we remember as part of the cultural events. There are day trips provided every month. The project provides monthly day trips outside the camp to recreation centres and parks, as the camp lacks green spaces and safe places to play for the young people. So again, this aspect of the program is really welcomed by the young people. Food and snacks are provided to all of the young people who participate in the program every day. And as I was saying earlier, the food is actually grown. A lot of it is grown in the camp as part of a food collective by our partner organization, the Women's Program Association. In this pic, you see the director of the Women's Program Association, Mariam Al-Shar, standing on the roof of her building in Burj Barajna camp with a vertical garden behind her. So a lot of the food is actually grown in this garden in the camp. Some of the food they produce is sold, and some of it is given to the young people who are enrolled in the projects that they deliver. So the Women's Program Association delivers educational activities in 8 of the 12 Palestinian camps in Beirut. So it's a really experienced NGO that delivers their activities to a very high level, and they employ about 100 people across Lebanon. So our program is one of many that this NGO in Lebanon is working on. So yeah, a few words about the physical environment of Burj Barajna. So it's basically a warren of very narrow streets. From a child's perspective, there are no green spaces or safe areas to play. So it's a very oppressive environment from their point of view. And that it makes the project and the activities delivered through the project all the more important because of that. A lot of these alleyways have low-hanging wires, which are a combination of sanitation, water cables, internet cables, electricity cables, and very often they dangerously crisscross. And as a result of that, there's quite a high number of electrocutions in this camp, and a lot of those electrocuted are minors, again because there aren't any safe places for young people in this camp. A reminder that it's 1 square kilometer and 30,000 people, so it's very, very densely populated with, as I say, very limited opportunities for young people to play and feel safe. So here is an overview of Palestinians in Lebanon. There are around 5.5 million Palestinians across the Middle East under the care of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, which is the UN agency that was set up in 1945 after the Nakba, after 1948, when Palestinians were dispossessed of their land. So in Lebanon, there are around 480,000 refugees. It's hard to be completely precise about this because refugees move in and out of different camps at different times. And a lot of refugees from Syria have come to Lebanon, and many of them are living in the Palestinian camps because it's the only affordable accommodation that they could find in Lebanon. So there are 12 Palestinian camps, 65 UN provided schools, 37,500 Palestinian students. I mentioned before the area on which Burj Barajna is constructed, 1 square kilometer, 31,000 approximately refugees living there. 2,000 Palestinian refugee children from Syria have settled in the camp since the start of the war in Syria in 2011. Palestinians in Lebanon are highly marginalized because they have never been naturalized. They don't have Lebanese citizenship. They're excluded from over 40 occupations. They can't own property. They can't inherit property. So it's not really possible for them to elevate their social status within Lebanon as a result. So most of them, most Palestinians in Lebanon work in the informal economy, which means that they get paid cash in hand. And during the pandemic, because people were forced to stay at home for nearly 2 years, they weren't able to work. So this really increased poverty greatly within all of the camps. When they're able to work, the men work with cars a lot. They work in construction. The women are involved in sewing, handicrafts that can be sold for money either in the camp or outside the camp. That's the kind of work that they're limited to because, as I say, most employers will not employ Palestinians in Lebanon. The social and economic situation for Palestinians has deteriorated as well because of a crisis in UNRWA. This is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. As I mentioned, this agency was created in 1949 to provide health and education and other services to Palestinians. It's in the middle of an existential crisis because of a series of funding cuts. It just has 48% of its required budget in 2022-23. As a result of that, many of their local staff, the locally employed staff in Palestine, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, have been put on long-term unpaid leave. That means that they won't be paid as long as they have to stay at home, because UNRWA basically can't afford to pay their wages. UNRWA employs nearly 30,000 people. 90% of them are Palestinians. So this crisis in UNRWA is likely to compound the economic problems experienced by Palestinians, not just in Lebanon, but the other countries and regions where they work in Gaza, the West Bank, in Syria, and in Jordan. Most Palestinians, the majority of Palestinians are in Jordan. So, as I say, these problems are the results of funding cuts. During the Trump administration, Trump withdrew all US support for this agency. Most of this has been restored by Biden, but not all. So they're experiencing severe funding shortages, and yet the need for their services have increased because of COVID-19 and the demands that has made on UNRWA, and just the general increase in the population of Palestinian populations across the Middle East. So as I say, there are approximately 5.5 million Palestinians in Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Gaza, and the West Bank. I visited some of the camps in Jordan last November, and I saw this protest outside one of the UN installations in Amman, the capital of Jordan. And these Palestinians were protesting about the situation that they're confronted, the fact that they have to take unpaid leave for a period of several months because UNRWA can't pay them. I mean, I'm sympathetic to their situation, obviously, and to UNRWA too, because they simply don't have the funding that they need to provide all of the services and jobs that they have promised to for Palestinians in all of the areas in which they work. So basically, the wider context in which Palestinians are living in Lebanon has deteriorated badly over the last couple of years, which really makes the need for the NIPSA funded project all the greater. This is a report that was published about last year's program by NIPSA. I'm pretty sure that it's on the NIPSA website. It's certainly on the Centre for Global Education's website, and it has more details about the activities that you have been funding. But the educational services provided by this program are highly valued. I visit the program every year, and I'm visiting it next week. And I've spoken to the parents of some of the young people enrolled in this program, and they couldn't talk higher about the quality of the learning and what their children are saying about the quality of the teaching and the educational activities that they participate in. So they're really delighted to have their young people participate in the activities provided by NIPSA. Excuse me. So thank you very much indeed for your support. I know that the funding for this comes from NIPSA member subscription, so it's really, or donations, so it's really appreciated by the Centre for Global Education, by the Women's Programme Association, our partner in Beirut, and by all of the young people who participate in this program. That's my contact details. You can contact me about the program anytime. So that's me, Rory, finished. I'm happy to take questions later, but I'll stop sharing for now. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Stephen. It's plain to see from that, know the difference that it is making to the young people's lives out there. It's very heartwarming. So we now have Stephen Woods from Tools for Solidarity, Magnon, who's the partnership worker. So if I get this pronounced right now, is support for the New Artisans Centre in Yombe Province, Tanzania.
Thanks very much, Rory, and thanks, Geraldine, and all the champions from NIPSA. Stephen, very inspirational work you're doing there. Really impressed with what you're doing and all parts of the project. Very, very inspirational. The work we're doing in Tanzania is a new project. I was just checking and checked that the letter we received from NIPSA arrived on February 2020 for us to start developing a new partnership with CEDO. Now, CEDO is a small industries development organization in Tanzania, set up by the Tanzanian government in 1973 to promote cooperative development, and it's moved on since then to support small and medium enterprises. And CEDO works throughout the whole of the country, and they are an ideal partner for us to reach the artisan sector. And the artisan sector is the group that we are best placed to support because we can provide them with the tools, sewing machines, machinery, and training that will enable them to support people living in small villages, in the urban centers, in vocational training colleges. So when we got the letter in February 2020, we had big plans to get the project up and running, but all those plans, of course, were put in hold as we went into lockdown. So our project was delayed by some months. What I want to do is I want to hand over to Manon. She is our partnership worker, and she, along with my brother John, who you see in the photograph there, spent 3 or 4 months in Njombe, Tanzania, at the start of 2021 to set up the project and to provide training to the staff. So I'll pass over to Manon.
Thank you. So hello everyone, my name is Manon. I'm from Belgium. I speak French, so if any of you doesn't understand me, please don't be afraid to just let me know. I imagine I have a strong accent sometimes, so don't be shy and just tell me to repeat. So as Stephen said, I'm going to introduce you to our project called the Njombe Artisan Support and Training Center, also known as the NASTC Center. So as Stephen said as well, we set it up with CEDO about a year and a half ago. So the main objective of the center is to support artisans through provision of high quality tools, sewing machine, and training. So officially the project started in November 2020, but because of the coronavirus, John and myself couldn't be there before, so we had to open the center officially in February 2021. So on the screen there is a map of Tanzania, and the red dot is the Njombe region. The center is located in Njombe town in the southern highland of Tanzania.
Hi, Manuel. Sorry, 2 seconds. Are you? I can't see it on our screen. Can anybody else?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for letting me know. I am in a share screen, so the other people can see the screen.
Yes, I can see it.
I can see
yeah.
it. Yeah, I can see it.
Right, I'll try something here. Just that's okay. Flowers can see it. Flowers can see it. I'll do something here and find it.
Okay, good luck.
It's okay.
Yeah, just keep going.
Okay, so yeah, the Njombe region has 6 districts, and the project tried to target each district, but also the southern island area, which also has another region. So the target group of the project is mainly rural women, especially on the sewing machine side of the project, but we also have a focus on youth, vocational training, and people with disability. So about the people with disability, we allocate each year a certain amount of sewing machine and tools free of charge to artisans. So TFS sent the first container in September 2020. It was about 4,500 tools, 330 sewing machine, 23 starter kits. So a starter kit is a box of tools, for example, carpentry starter kits with the basic tools for carpentry. We also have kits in auto mechanic and building. We also sent 9 heavy-duty machinery such as compressor and bandsaw, and we sent 50 electrical tools such as drill, jigsaw, etc. So just to let you know, it takes about 2 months and a half to send a container. So we sent this one about the 5th of September, and it arrives in Njombe around the 17th of November. So here is the success so far of the project from February to April this year, February 2021. So the project so far delivered 4 training sessions. So for any artisan purchasing a sewing machine, they also get one free week of training. So the training focus on embroidery or dress design. So it's like finishing skills. But they also get 1 day or half a day of business to, for example, help them to understand how works the business, keep recording a book of the sale and the order, etc. And they also get 1 day or half a day of repair and maintenance in the machine. So this is also a key element in the project, the training, and also to know how to repair the machine or to maintain the machine. So during the training, the artisan also receive lunch and breakfast. And if the artisan is coming from far away, they also get an allowance for transport or accommodation from the project. There is also a part that the project allocates about 6 sewing machines a year to people with disabilities. So this machine is allocated for free. The training is also for free, and the people with disability will also receive allowances for the transport and the accommodation. So far the project provided 4 training sessions to more than 90 artisans, including 2 people with disability. So also the project, so one of the success of the project is the treadle. So the electricity in Tanzania is not always reliable. So the treadle part is really important. So as you can see on the picture, this is locally made treadle by someone in Njombe. It is a very, very good design, a really high quality. So it's one of the big success of the project.
So I'd just like to talk a little bit about the challenges that we faced. Obviously, setting up a new project, there's lots of difficulties and factors that you don't take into account, and you're having to learn as you go. In general, the project has met nearly all of its targets. One of the areas which have proved more difficult than we had hoped was to reach artisans other than the tailoring sector. Njombe is quite rural. It has one major town outside of the center in Njombe. It's called Makambako, and it's a real haven of artisans. But reaching the carpenters and auto mechanics and builders and blacksmiths in the rural areas has proved quite difficult. So that's a real challenge for us. And as you will see when we talk about our field trip we've just come back from, one of the options we have is to expand into a regional beside the Njombe region, the Iringa region, where artisan activity seems to be much more active and much more developed. Another factor that is going to have a big impact on going forward is the growing costs and growing inflation. Inflation in Tanzania at the moment is running about 3.5%. But while we were there, diesel, for example, we were there for 3 weeks, and diesel in the 3-week period had risen 10%. So that's going to have a big impact on both in delivering the program in the future and in artisan activity. Okay. So me and myself and Manon and Jeff, who is our financial officer, went to a field trip visit in April. And we were very fortunate. They'd organized a training session for us while we were there. It was fantastic to see the tailors learning both embroidery skills, getting their business training, and learning how to use their machines. We discovered that one of the trainees was a woman, Adela, who was a woman who has disability, but hadn't been informed that she would receive her free sewing machine. So we did that while we were there, and during the giving out of certificates to all the trainees, she burst into tears. She was so overwhelmed with the impact of being able to have a free machine and to get the training free and get the support. She was on her knees. It was very humbling, very, very humbling. The disability side of what we do is really important. The project itself actually is generating a small amount of profit. Now that profit doesn't come to ourselves and doesn't go to CEDO. It's being channeled into this program to support people with disabilities. And an innovation to this project is that we, as well as supporting artisans who are disabled, we also wanted to provide opportunities for disabled people without any opportunities, without any skills, to become artisans. And this program will provide training, funding, and resources to enable young people with disabilities to become tailors. We had the pleasure to meet Andrea and Doris. Andrea is an orphan from a rural area. Doris has no education whatsoever, and they are now being trained for 1 year in a vocational training college in Njombe. All of their fees are covered. Accommodation is covered, food, transport, and it is a real transformation of their lives. Again, they were so overwhelmed with the support that they were receiving. They did ask, would they receive support at the end of the training? And it was explained to them that when they finish their 1 year training, that they will get a free sewing machine and they will get some capital as well to help them establish themselves in a small business. Doris asked about getting language training, reading and writing skills, and that's also being organized through the program. One final thing that we're doing is that we've linked in with, here in Belfast, we run a program called our Education for Sustainable Development. It's a program to try to raise awareness of sustainable development issues in primary schools and also with adult groups in and around Belfast. We deliver this program to about 30 primary schools in Belfast each year. We deliver it free, and it covers issues such as waste, causes of poverty, critical thinking, fair trade, climate change. And we had the idea to link one of our schools in Belfast with a school in Njombe. And Manon, when she was there last year, she came across this school. It's the deaf school in Njombe, and it's the only school of its kind in the whole of the country, which combines both the primary, secondary, and vocational training school for young people who are deaf. You can see here, there's a picture there of the sort of small weaving section in the vocational part of the school. So we have linked a Bun school from West Belfast with this school in Njombe, and they are sharing resources, and they hope to have a kind of twinning program with each other. And we have also agreed that we are planning to do a shipment later this year of between 300 to 400 sewing machines and about 4,000 tools to the centre. We will include a small shipment of tools and sewing machines for the deaf school as well. So that's our centre, and we really, really appreciate all the support we've received for the centre and for our previous work. It is supported very strongly by CEDO HQ. They're very keen for what we're doing to support the artisan sector, and they're very grateful for NIPSA for all the help and support they've given. So again, like Stephen, we're very happy to answer any questions towards the end. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Stephen and Manon. Once again, it's excellent to see the impact of the work and the charity it has on the ground there. Um, David, who's there, thankfully, and he's going to talk about the Just Transition Alliance, and David's from the Irish Congress of Trade Unions. Well, there, David.
Great, thanks. Thanks very much, Rory, and two very interesting presentations. Obviously, Palestine is a big part of the international work of Congress, so it was very interesting to hear about that. And on a personal level, I lived myself in East Africa for a number of years, so I visited Tanzania. I don't think I was in the Njombe region, but certainly really interesting work being held there, being carried out there. So thanks to Geraldine and to NIPSA for the invitation to talk to you this afternoon. Geraldine's asked me to kind of talk a little bit about the recent emergence of the Just Transition Alliance, and that is something I will do. But I think in terms of maybe getting there, I think just a little bit of background might be useful. I don't, by the way, have any fancy presentation with nice pictures, unfortunately, but I might, when I'm finished, put a couple of links in the chat for anyone who's interested in following up. I suppose I would start by saying that the transition to a low carbon economy in Ireland has been it has been a difficult experience for workers so far. Almost, if you like, replicating what was the deindustrialization of Europe and North America, that condemned millions of workers to impoverishment, really, joblessness, and indeed, sort of for many, the kind of their way of life became redundant. And for workers and communities reliant on fossil fuel industry, particularly those in the Midlands area working in the peat industry and employed by semi-state companies such as Board Namona, while extraordinary change and sacrifices have been demanded of these workers and the communities in the Midlands, it hasn't to date been matched by the required supports from government or state agencies in a manner consistent with the principles of a just transition. So, for example, over 1,000 jobs have been lost in this sector, and there's been a real failure to create new and replacement jobs and quality employment opportunities for the affected workers and communities in any kind of way that would mitigate and offset the losses suffered by those communities. There have, and I'll come back to it in a little bit, there have been some more positive experience of all of this in various countries around the world, and that's something which we need to learn from here in terms of moving forward on these issues. But unless we address that kind of those deficits, the transition process in Ireland risks becoming synonymous with job loss, lower living standards, and a resultant kind of loss of worker confidence in public support for the much needed climate action that we all know needs to happen. So, I mean, in the peat industry was kind of interwoven within Irish life and the communities in the Midlands So obviously a just transition is vital in terms of safeguarding the future sustainability and development of those communities. I suppose getting into what we mean by a just transition, it's not only preemptive, it forces, if you like, those concerned with the environment to consider the social impact of rapid decarbonization on human communities. And likewise, it forces the likes of us in the trade union movement to consider the role we play in decarbonizing our workplaces and societies. The success of Bord na Móna in the Midlands, I don't need to really go into that in much detail, but it gave hope to huge swathes of rural communities in the Midlands, improved living standards, and for thousands of workers and families and communities, and there were also all sorts of knock-on effects to that. Not least those of you who are interested in Gaelic football might remember that Offaly had a very successful football team in the 1970s, and it's no surprise, I think, to learn that over half of the team were ESB employees. So it was a huge issue and a huge part of life in the Midlands. So what we're involved in now, and unions who represent those workers, is fighting to create a kind of viable post-peace future for hundreds of our members and their local communities. And in reality, what we have are companies downsizing their operations without linking the proposed closures, downsizing, etc., with investment in new forms of employment, nor engaging with the workforce and local communities in agreeing a plan for a just transition. There have been some efforts to start moving in this direction. The government appointed a Just Transition Commissioner in 2019, and he did a lot of work consulting with various communities in the region with a view to identifying possible alternatives, etc. And there was over 240 million euro in government funding allocated to various projects in the peatlands, but very little of that went directly to workers and communities in the area. And I mean, only a year ago, less than a year ago, Bord na Móna claimed that it would be back to pre-2018 levels of employment within 5 years, but that really hasn't. The reality behind that headline, if you like, hasn't really translated into decent work for people previously involved in this activity. The Irish government itself has committed to the implementation of a just transition by signing up to a range of kind of global accords and treaties in this whole area. Just transition is woven into the Paris Agreement, and various COP meetings have produced declarations from governments on just transition, including last year's COP26, which explicitly commits governments to supporting and promoting social dialogue, along with the creation of decent work. Then nationally, there was an exercise in the NESC, that's the National Economic and Social Council, which set out a kind of blueprint for a just transition in Ireland, and its key recommendations were a kind of clear, indicated a clear consensus right across our society, because NESC is made up of, not only ourselves from the trade union movement, but employers, farmers, the community and voluntary sector. So, it was a multi-stakeholder approach that led to that important report. But again, it hasn't yet translated into a positive experience for unions, workers, and their communities. So we felt we needed to seek to move government beyond, maybe optics is unfair, but beyond using the language of just transition into making that a reality, because just transition now is very much part of the public discourse here in terms of climate action. But because of its kind of more popular use now, its original meaning as defined by the labor movement has been diluted, if you like, through that process. So, I mean, obviously, as a movement, we can't fight to retain every job in carbon producing industries. That would just make us complicit in, in the destruction of the planet. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we have been relatively late to this discussion as a movement. I remember, it might be 10 years ago, maybe less, getting a call from a colleague who was at a meeting with various stakeholders where the whole issue of climate action came up, and people were being asked what their perspective on it was, and the truth is we kind of were vaguely aware of all the reports, etc., but we didn't really have a worked out position on it. Our international organization, the ITUC, produced a pamphlet back in, I think it was 2015, and made the phrase "there are no jobs on a dead planet" very kind of popular, and it helped to engage a kind of a critical mass of trade unions right across the world, not just here in Ireland. So I suppose we felt that we needed to find common ground, if you like, between ourselves and environmental organizations. So if you like, a kind of combination of our concern for social and economic justice combined in some way with environmentalists seeking to protect the planet from destruction because of the way we live and operate. And so in March this year, we launched what's known as the Just Transition Alliance. And I will put in the chat when I'm finished, I'll put in a link to the declaration that accompanied that particular launch. It was launched by the President of Congress, Kevin Callanan, and the kind of founding organizations of the alliance are ourselves in the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, Forsa Trade Union, SIP2 Trade Union, Stop Climate Chaos, which is a kind of coalition of NGOs on the issue, and Friends of the Earth were a driving force behind it also. So we, over a period of months, I suppose, discussed, how we could come up with sort of wording that, we could both sign up to, that acknowledged what I referenced earlier, the kind of, obviously, the urgency and importance of tackling climate change, but also the need to protect and create jobs, enhance living standards, and generate new opportunities that will help to build sustainable, resilient communities across the country. And I won't go into the detail of the declaration. I'll put it in the chat for you, but I'll move to the recommendations, if you like, that or the demands we made on government in this particular declaration. And one of them was the urgency of establishing a national just transition commission. And that would be very much based on social dialogue and comprised of representatives of government, obviously, trade unions, employers, affected communities, and civil society. And the commission, if you like, would be charged with developing the national framework and blueprint for just transition, covering the entire economy, not just the Midlands. And we all agreed that the ILO guidelines for a just transition were a kind of key source document for doing this work. The government, I should say, in its climate action bill last year, committed to the formation of a just transition commission. But in the detail of that, talked about doing a sort of policy paper in the first half of this year, then introducing legislation, because they want to put it on a statutory basis, which is good in one sense, but of course we all know that making laws takes time. So we reckon that if we go down this route, it'll be late 2023 before we actually get any Just Transition Commission up and running. I think the launch of the Alliance has been a useful initiative in itself, because we have since been contacted by the responsible government department, and we have met with them, and we have started to discuss what that Just Transition Commission might look like. And we don't claim to have all of the answers in this regard, but I think it's pretty clear from talking with the government also that they don't have a particular blueprint in mind. So it's like, I think it's an opportunity for everyone to get stuck in and try and come up with a version of a commission that would work here in Ireland. We do have information from the Just Transition Centre, which is a trade union centre formed by the ITUC, our international body, to advise unions and workers around the world on how to engage with climate action and to try and promote a just transition wherever in their particular jurisdictions. And they have produced information on examples of similar kinds of initiatives in different countries, in Spain, in examples from different parts of the US, South Africa, and indeed the UK as well, and Germany and other places. And none of them are the same. Most of them do include trade union representation, which obviously is important for us. Some follow the ILO guidelines in terms of what they should be doing and the importance of social dialogue, etc. Some are involved in kind of monitoring what's happening. Some are involved in suggesting actions that should happen, etc. So, you know, it's really a question, and this is what we're embarked on at the moment in the Alliance. And in fact, the Alliance will be meeting with Minister Eamon Ryan in the coming weeks to kind of talk more about this. So, you know, overall, I think it's been a positive initiative, an important one in that it has helped to map out common ground between ourselves and environmental organizations, because I suppose traditionally we might not have been on the same page on all of this. So I hope that explains in some way some of what's been happening and what led to the formulation of the Alliance. And, you know, happy to answer any questions. So thanks very much.
Thanks very much, David. I think you're quite right there. Like, no, it's got a good start, but I think now is the time to be getting stuck on, because time is of the essence, and it's good to note that the ministers agreed to meet. Hopefully, we see some movement from that on then. Right, we go to the questions now. Roger's jumped the gun, like, but I'm not sure if everybody has seen it in the chat, so I'll just read it out. It was a question for tools for solidarity, just about where the tools come from. So people donate them. Belfast Council collect through recycling centres, and the type of things that they want is all types of sewing machines, so especially the straightforward, straight stitch ones. Take all types of tools, so long as they're good quality or they can be repaired and there's plenty of life left on them, and can collect machinery depending on the storage or what the different projects need. So if we can open it to the floor there, anybody, you can turn your cameras on now. Anybody has any questions, just stick their hand up, or you can't do that, you can put it on the chat. Oh, very shy, are you? David's just put up the link there for the publication on the Just Transition Alliance joint declaration.